Hey everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Return of the Living Geeks. As you know, this is a podcast where we geek out about our favorite films and TV shows, both old and new. I am your host, Michael Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation, and my previous bylines include Films in Review, Screen Magazine, and AMC's The Bite. I'm also the author of a book called The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema. And today we have a really awesome guest, Michael Keene. He's a filmmaker, professional YouTuber, and um, uh, he's had some really awesome movies like Fatal Future and The Head, and an upcoming movie called Dr. Deathface.
Yes,
So give it
that's
up.
me. Yeah, yeah. That's me. I got stuff. I got all these irons in these fires, and they're all fucking hot because I don't know how to put irons in fires, and it hurts my fucking hands. Good to be here. As
Yeah.
always.
So before we jump into the new Scream, I definitely want to mention that your film has been crushing it on the Indiegogo. And like it's over, I checked this morning and like over $11,000, which is awesome because that was actually more than your original goal, right?
Yeah, 10,000 was the goal. Which I mean, once Indiegogo takes its fees out and withholds its like refund amount, then it's basically 10 grand. But it is currently in demand, so that means that you can still give. So if you head over to the Indiegogo page for Dr. Deathface, it is you can still nab those perks. We're probably going to keep that going through filming. I don't want to keep it up too long, but I also do need as much money as I can get because just the special effects alone
Yeah.
are costing me $10,000. So
Yeah, so I know that last time you told us about the movie, but for anyone that's just sort of jumping into this series, tell us about this wild, awesome movie that you're making.
So it's about a sex therapist named Dr. Deathface, real name. And he, long story short, has a few psychological issues that he's dealing with himself. And he finds a way through them after his sweat creates a giant man-eating vagina in his bed. And he feeds that vagina people who are often his patients, and he discovers that he's got a little serial killer in him. Not like a leprechaun or anything, like he's a serial killer. Yeah, I mean that's basically the log line. There's a lot more to it, frustratingly more at times for me. But it's going to be a bloody wild time. I haven't actually mentioned this anywhere yet, but I feel like it's probably fine for me to say. But we have Tom Devlin working on the special effects.
Nice.
He's worked with a lot of full moon projects, including he did the Blade for the Blade movie. I don't remember which. I think it's just called Blade, like colon something, but the last Puppet Master movie.
Okay.
And he's a great guy. He's gonna be making the vagina for me, and sapping up my budget. But we also have Drew Marvick of Pool Party Massacre fame in the film. He was also in my previous film, The Head. He's great. And potentially more. I haven't really. That's the only official stuff right now. But
Nice.
we're going a little over on time as far as pre-production goes. We had to push the schedule a bit for a few reasons. One of them being the special effects just needed a little bit more time because he's a busy guy. But yeah, it's gonna be fun and bloody and a lot of
Nice.
fucking. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, and I do know Drew a little bit. He seems like a really cool guy, so it's pretty awesome.
big beard energy. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's awesome. I will definitely link the Indiegogo in the description, and I'm telling y'all should donate, share, support some awesome indie horror. Like, just fucking do it.
Do it.
But we are here to talk about the new Scream, Scream 5, Scream 2020, or
2022.
2022. Yeah, whatever. What year is it even, right?
I don't know.
I mean, listen, ever since the pandemic, time's not even a thing, right?
Life is garbage. Yeah.
Sure.
Reflective in here, bit. I got good. Let's see. There we go. That's
so better. I know I previously had you on to talk about the Scream series, but at the time I had not seen the new film. So I'm really excited to kind of get into this because I've watched the new Scream now 4 times.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Somebody has more time than me on their hands, that's for sure.
Not really, but I do find time somehow. Yeah, so as a guest, I want to get your views first, and then we can kind of go from there.
Well, I watched it again last night for the first time since I saw it in theaters. I was super stoned, and you know what? I'd say that it might rank a little higher in my mind after rewatching it. It's hard to say. I feel like I need to rewatch some of the other movies. I would say that it's either second or third best for me out of the franchise, and I don't dislike any of the movies. I think, like most people, Scream 3 is probably the most flawed, but still entertaining. And for me, Scream 4, it has or Scream, fucking Jesus Christ, Scream 5, Scream 2022, Scream Prime or Scream Alpha, Scream Beta, God, it's so awful to talk about. Oh God, this is the worst trend in cinema history. But Scream 5, a lot of fun, very enjoyable, has a lot of the same problems that most of the movies have to some degree. So it's really hard to hold them against it in any major way. But at the end of the day, I would say really entertaining, really fun, a great concept that's maybe a little muddled just by virtue of being fucking 5 movies to a franchise that really only has strong material for 2 movies if you really break it down. So all things considered, I think way better than has any right to be, and by itself, strong shit.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's interesting that you say that you kind of liked it more in the second viewing, because that actually is like kind of spot on from my experience. And like, I've talked to some other fans subsequently, and they also kind of expressed that it definitely does get better when you sort of have time to like marinate on it a little bit more. Like, I think that, you know, once you okay, so obviously we're going to be talking spoilers, so you know, just go see it already. It's on Paramount Plus. Couldn't be easier to see. But anyways, yeah, like once you know who like the killers are, it's really interesting to go back and watch how they sort of interact with each other.
Oh yeah.
Like, I didn't realize that they basically both accuse each other, like their first sort of scenes together.
Yeah. Richie and Amber. Absolute. You know, I was kind of on the fence at first with the killers, but they're really good. They're really good. They do create one serious issue, or I say serious, not really that serious. They create one like sizable issue, with a bit of a pun there, in that I'm pretty sure, if let's just like pop right in here. I'm pretty sure that Richie doesn't kill anyone except for maybe the security guard, or not, well, the cop in the hospital, maybe.
Yeah.
Like I checked, like I went to IMDb, I went to Reddit, I was making sure of I was checking my work, and with some, there's a few kills that are a bit up in the air, but if you really break it down, it feels like he couldn't have killed anyone, and it was all Amber, which is fascinating, of course, because Amber, played by oh shoot, I forgot her name, but I have it up, Mikey Madison, who's like appears to be 3 foot tall, like he's has to be the shortest killer in franchise history. But of course, Ghostface is always played by a stuntman in a costume who's like maybe 6 foot. And there's several moments. There's a few times where I was paying a lot of attention this time to like kind of figure out who was in the suit and to see how much the film cheated. And it doesn't cheat as much as I thought it did, but there are certain moments like where, Ghostface is overpowering someone and it's like this doesn't make a lot of sense. I think Wes is actually the toughest one because like I think everybody brings up Dewey's death, of course, another major point of contention in the film, and how she overpowers him. And that one is definitely Amber. That one is definitively has to be Amber. Yeah. And she doesn't really overpower him the first. It's just a fight at first, and Dewey gets the better of her. Of course, she gets shot, and there's the whole bulletproof vest thing, which I let that go because bulletproof vests in movies behave differently from bulletproof vests in real life. That's just how it is. But the smart thing that they do several times throughout the movie is they have, I believe, always Amber, but it could be Richie at certain points, try to go for some sort of debilitating stab at some point. So like with Dewey, he gets the phone call from Gail Weathers and gets distracted, and she gets him with a knife in the gut, and then from there he's weakened by virtue of being stabbed in the freaking stomach, and then and Dewey's fucking dead. Sucks. And so like things like that make sense. But then you have like Wes, who is this very obviously muscular guy, because we get that sexy steamy shower scene where he's just like,
yeah,
oh yeah, I get them abs. And unless I'm missing something because I was high, she did like the only stab he gets is to the neck, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, either Amber or Richie, and I think it's Amber, has to like get that knife right in there past his muscly arms. Those you just want to hug you, and into his neck. Which I mean, she could have been training them biceps for many months beforehand. I guess like maybe she was doing a lot of training. She's usually wearing long sleeves. Maybe she's hiding some guns in there. But that's the only like big like issue, because like all the movies cheat to some degree.
Yeah.
But this one, it does feel like it cheats a little too much. There's also the issue of, as far as I could tell, there's not really any foreshadowing to Amber being the killer. At least no more than you normally get. Like the fact, like I think the only big one is when she goes to the basement by herself.
Yeah.
That one is, it's well obvious because she doesn't have to worry about it because she's one of the fucking killers. But and then like her and Richie exchange these like glances every so often, and going back and watching it again, you notice like, oh yeah, because they're fucking, and also the killers. So that it's I really like the killers. I went way into a tangent here. I apologize. But yeah, interesting way to do it. And of course, it all comes to the central thesis of the film, which is that since it's a requel, it needs to force in social commentary, and it does so in a very good way, very smart, with them being toxic fans, which is something that we all are very much aware of. And if you're not aware of toxic fandom, well, I've got some bad news, Buckaroo.
Yeah.
It might just be
Yeah, no, I think that the whole through line of toxic fandom is a really interesting and solid one to sort of like build the movie around. And yeah, I kind of love how it's so like clever of them to also sort of talk about A24 horror and elevated horror and how like it's sort of evolved as far as like from your usual like like the in-universe stab movies to like something like the Babadook, which like I love, gets name checked a few times. So yeah, I think that that's a really smart kind of way to go to talk about like how horror has sort of changed and evolved really since even in the last 11 years, from 4 to 5. Yeah, I thought that was all really brilliant stuff. I like the toxic fans on the YouTube channel that we got a glimpse of like the last Stab movie, which looked hilariously awful, but I kind of want to see it.
I love the dead meat cameo, by the way. That was great.
Yeah.
James A. Janice, love that man. Love that man.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like stuff that, so when my knee-jerk reaction when I first saw it was, it's so meta that it's almost overbearing. um but then when I sort of had time to really like ruminate on it and think about it, and then of course go back and watch it a couple more times, it's interesting because I feel that's sort of the like the thread of toxic fandom, and how much meta is like enough or too much. I feel like it's all sort of well thought out and planned out. But again, it's weird because I've heard other fans like talk about how one of the aspects they didn't like was that all of these movies are meta, of course, but like this one really like goes for it, like maybe more than any other Scream movie.
I would say that's a bullshit criticism, personally, for two reasons. One is demonstrably Scream 3 and 4 are aggressively meta. Like, people forget Scream 3 literally has Jay and Silent Bob show up as living characters. And has like an entire chase sequence in a house that is a set reproducing the real in universe house from the first. Like, that is aggressively meta. The opening to Scream 4 feels like it is a parody of the Scream franchise. Like, they've been super meta before. Hell, a lot of the rants and ravings in Scream 4 also very meta. Scream 2 is extremely meta, but of course, Scream 2 also, like, people always bring up Scream 2 as like the best sequel, and rightfully so. Like, that's the one that I'm kind of like, I'm torn whether this is better than that. Like, because you have that nostalgia element, and also you have the fact that Scream 2 is the only film in the franchise, or the only sequel rather in the franchise, to have it pretty easy. And that's not to say that it didn't take a lot of hard work to write the script, or that it's not a great script or whatever, but it, like, what's the easiest thing to satirize about horror movies, especially slasher movies? Well, sequels. Sequels are so easy to satirize. All of the beats are there. There's so much to pull from. It's super easy to do a sequel satirization. And while it's super meta, it works in favor of itself because we're all like, we immediately grasp onto what's happening. And if you think about it for a few minutes, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, it doesn't really make sense that like some of the rules don't really work. They're really just cherry picking sequel rules, but they're so ingrained in our consciousness that we just kind of go along with it. You have characters like really going hard on the concept of sequels, which they do here as well. And so, like, in my mind, they're all aggressively meta.
Yeah.
And I think this one is, yeah, pretty meta. And there's certainly moments where it does ride that line, but I think that's nothing new for the franchise. I think we just have had more time to let the other ones settle. Nothing's going to be as ridiculous as Roman's plot in 3. Sorry, I think 3 is fine, and it's very fun, but it's a dumb fuck movie. Like, really fun, really good. Could watch Parker Posey all day. Holy shit, it's stupid.
Yeah.
This one at least is pretty smart with what it does, outside of those like cheating the fact that you got Mikey Madison fucking 2'5" killing Dewey, like that. Sure, you have that going, but I everything makes sense. It's a fairly coherent central thesis. The only real problem is that, Scream, because of what I mentioned with 2, is a really challenging film to make sequels to. If you wanted to just throw out the social commentary, there's a perfectly good structure there. You have, and they mentioned this in this movie, Ghostface is not like Michael Myers, not like Jason Voorhees, not like Freddy Krueger. It's not the same character coming back again and again. It's the same, it's the same costume and the same voice, but it's different characters, and that's great because it means there's always a mystery. You don't have that problem that most Friday the 13th movies have, that Nightmare on Elm Street has, the Halloween has, where you know exactly who the killer is. You always have to be guessing, but you still get that great voice. You still get that great costume. You still get the great general style of kills, with little variations based on who's killing, which I noticed Amber's kills very frantic in the movie. I think that's great. But the only issue really is that it's dealing with concepts that have been touched on before. Not exactly. It's still a different era, but like as far as like elevated horror, well, Scream is inherently elevated horror. And elevated horror, I mean, we know it's a bullshit term, but as far as how they describe elevated horror, it's really, I mean, it's just, Scream is that, like it's an elevated take on the slasher movie, so it already is there. But if you take it as elevated horror based on previous concepts, and it's, elevated horror is taking something that's been done. Scream has been done quite a bit. It created a whole subgenre, and then rejiggering it for modern sensibilities, and I guess making it more mature in some way. In this one, the opening victim survives. That's a real, like, that's a huge change up for the formula that was created by Scream. So rad. And then, it takes something from the original, and this is kind of a requel thing more so, but it takes the idea of the daughter of a victim being the main character and making it the daughter of a killer. Great stuff. Let's see. There's like, there's a bunch of different direct parallels, like things that they do that either were done in the original series or are, variations that kind of toy with the idea. So it's, it is technically doing these things. It is technically a requel. It is technically elevated horror, as much as it needs to be to get the concept across. But it's so much more complicated than just, this is a sequel, or this is the third film in a trilogy, which all those rules make zero fucking sense. But and even part 4, did the reboot thing, which is, it takes its own path, makes it about teen celebrity and kind of about like social media fame, which was way ahead of its time. And it's almost a shame because like that's perfect for now, but of course you can't do the same thing that Scream 4 did. So I think that with all those elements against it, like I don't think any of the major criticisms leveled at the film really make a lot of sense. If you take it all objectively.
Yeah, and I have to say that I'm just so impressed with how much I really found myself liking the characters, like especially the new characters. Of course, you have the legacy characters, which is always awesome. Like Mindy's my favorite, like by far. She's like the Randy 2.0. And yeah, I mean, it's I also kind of thought that I love the sort of arc that Sydney and Gail have. I feel like when you take their relationship from the very first film all the way to now, how much they've grown. I mean, literally the first 2 movies, they meet by socking, like Sydney socks her in the face. And now they're like the best gal pals at the end, like really leaning on each other, literally like saving each other at the end. I thought that was really cool. And, I love the fact that, Gail's like, I'm not writing about these killers anymore. I'm writing about Dewey.
That is a
And
great. I love that she's like, fuck these killers. They're gonna die in anonymity. Which I'm
yeah,
not sure if that actually would work in real life, but sure. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know. I mean, like I was thinking that too. I was like, well, there's going to be a lot of news coverage, so someone's going to write a book or,
Yeah. A bunch of people died. At least
yeah.
one of them famous. Like,
Yeah, so but I again, that's where I put my like nitpick aside and I'm like, okay, I like what they're trying to say here though, that she's had a really interesting, well developed arc over the series. So I thought that worked really well. And I just think it's a lot of fun. It's not flawless. There was a couple things that I thought, like there's some elements that I thought maybe could have been a little bit more developed or polished, but overall, like again, I've seen it a bunch of times, so obviously I really like it. I think that again, it's such a great cast. It's like I love how they like kept a lot of what I think is going to be fan favorites for what I'm hearing is like a planned new trilogy, which is actually something they wanted to do with four, like do a new sort of trilogy with the other characters. Um, so yeah, I can totally see this being like a really awesome like new trilogy with getting to know some of these characters a little bit better. I know like Mindy survived. Oh, I'm trying to think like what the jock guy's name was.
chat.
Yeah, I liked him. He survived. And of course, you have the two sisters, and that's a great relationship too. I really liked that dynamic. Like that for me was like the strongest sort of like through line besides the sort of toxic fandom thing that they were doing. So one of the things that's been super divisive about this movie is having Skeet back in like de-aged ghost form. And I know not really a ghost, it's just sort of like her, it's like in her head. But I I had to say I didn't like it at first. I thought it was kind of jarring, but then like I kind of got into it. And just I'm like totally into it now. It's just at first it was sort of like, oh, okay, this is interesting.
Actually, I have a question for you about that since you watched the movie 4 times. Because this is something I didn't catch. And again, it might be because I saw it once in theaters and then once stoned off my ass. But did they ever explain how Richie knows that she sees these visions?
Yeah, I think she ends up telling him,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, it's like a blink or you miss it kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, because that was the only thing I was like, because it was probably because I wasn't thinking about it at all during the movie, and then he mentions it at the end, and I'm like, how the fuck does he
Yeah,
know that she sees this bullshit? But yeah, that leads to like, so there's a lot of talk about, or was a lot of talk about her seeing um, Billy. So on the one hand, it is a little, it's jarring a little bit until you remember that we had the whole ghost angle in part 3, so it's
yeah,
nothing new for the franchise. um and the CGI, it's one of those things where it's like objectively it's really well done, but then also there's always going to be that like, this is 20 years or 20 over 20 years, a lot of years. Oh god, fuck, oh, death comes for us all. It's a long time since, so he's very aged,
yeah,
and you can still tell no matter how good the CGI is. And there's also the fact that they, I didn't know this until recently, but because of, I think, COVID or something, they had to shoot his stuff separately and like work it back in. So like she's talking to a double, and then they popped him in afterward. I'm not sure exactly if that process affected things at all, but it might lead to some of the like how it doesn't quite feel right. But I think the biggest thing that I saw people complaining about regarding this was the idea of Billy kind of in her mind pushing her to be this killer. and at the end, him sort of, strong quotation marks, helping her. It's really her helping her, but visually for us, the viewer, it's him helping her to succeed and pushing her to, be her very best Stabby McStabberson. And I think there was this complaint that this was somehow like making light of the fact that Billy Loomis was a massive piece of shit. I don't think that's the case, but I feel like a lot of people, there's this issue with a lot of movies nowadays where I know recently with Licorice Pizza, where you have these characters who are bad people or flawed, or you're presented with something that, taken very literally, is morally wrong or complex. And because it has to do in some way with your main character, usually, in this case, literally our main chick, I freaking forgot her name, Sam, Sam Carpenter, Sam Loomis, because it has to do with her, like, it's somehow morally wrong for the film to do it. Like, there's this weird logic, where if the character does something or is taking reference from something that is bad or evil or immoral, then somehow that makes them bad or immoral, and vis-a-vis reflects poorly on the film's morals or something. That's what I was getting a lot of on like Twitter and what have you, which admittedly not a great place to get film criticism from, because people are fucking morons. But did you see any of that, by the way? Like,
so no, that's really interesting. Like, I was kind of taking in what you were saying, because I was also like trying to wrap my head around. I didn't really interpret it like that personally. I kind of felt like it was more just, I didn't see this sort of moral underpinning, or of like him coming off as, a helper or or anything like that. I just felt like it was kind of an interesting way to, get some exposition, and also maybe like help her sort of, as you say, like self actualize at the end.
yeah, and
I mean,
I mean, at the end of the day, it's taking, the idea behind it is you're taking something really dark about your psyche, something that you can't help, in this case, her, not even upbringing, but her biological past, this thing that weighs heavily on her mind, that drove her away from her family, this really strong darkness within her, and accepting that that's part of her life, and then using it for what is, in the context of this movie, good. It doesn't, if you prod at it too much, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, there's no reason that she should be really good at killing, or like have some like biological um ability to channel her dark side or whatever. But for whatever reason, she has created this darkness in her mind based on these revelations, and then she uses them to stab the fuck out of Richie, which is great.
yeah, it's interesting, because this was like something that last viewing I took some notes on, and I was kind of like, oh, this is maybe like a really interesting parallel of like one of the major themes of Scream 1, which was like the, the fear of like being like your parent, inheriting somehow this, what is perceived to be like a moral flaw, or Sydney even name checks the bad seed, in the original, the first film, which is, have you seen the bad seed, the original, like the 50s horror
I
movie?
think I watched it when I was younger.
um
I know the
Amazing.
plot, but
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. It's one of the few movies from like the 50s that truly gives me the creeps still. But essentially it's about a little girl that like kills people, and she kind of inherited it from her you know mother, or like it was passed down into the mother's genes. And it talks about like nature versus nurture, which is something that was really interesting, for a 50s horror movie, is, and it's kind of something that we still sort of talk about today. But I kind of thought I kind of thought it seemed like a almost direct sort of parallel between that theme of, the parent and child kind of thing. That was something that Wes Craven like folded a lot into his films, like this sort of dysfunctional family, like the family unit. It's pretty much in just about everything that he ever did, really. So I thought that was kind of a cool way to, explore some of these like Cravenisms without, obviously without Wes.
I didn't really thought about that.
Yeah,
Like as a parallel to West filmography, but that's actually, yeah, that's a really smart take. Yeah,
thanks.
I like the movie more now.
Yeah,
You know,
I
fuck
think.
the original Scream. This is the best one.
Yeah, I mean, I could be just reaching, but I kind of felt like that was something that was pretty intentional. Like I always think it's really interesting when they have these really subtle callbacks folded in with like some of the, as you said, more direct kind of references. And of course, this movie is full of Easter eggs, which I love. Um, like I was trying to think of some of my favorite. I mean, some of the obvious ones, like Sam Carpenter,
Yeah,
um, you know, John
being Sam Loomis.
Carpenter.
Yeah,
Um,
um, and then the Lemon Squares. That's a self-referential one.
mhm,
Yeah, and then there's I think one of the things that threw me off the first time in theaters, and I mean I still really liked it. I think I made that clear in our first podcast, but um, what threw me off originally a little bit was how much it like relied on past movies in the franchise, but then watching it again, like the way that it plays with the like cloning phones. I thought that as part of the opener, I didn't even think about it in the moment during the theatrical release because obviously I didn't know who Amber was as a character. I didn't know that she was one of the killers. I didn't, I wasn't sure if where it was going, but the killer brings up, that it's so easy to just clone a cell phone. No, it's not. No, it's not. This is a stupid idea. This is a dumb fuck thing that Scream 3, of course, used way too much.
yeah.
Um, and I don't think they ever used the cloning thing again in this movie. I think it's only brought up in the opening, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and of course, what is it for? It's just a fake out for the twist. I'm not sure who the fuck's supposed to be holding that phone because I feel like
Right.
Richie has to be near. When you really bring it all up, it doesn't make a lot of sense. That's okay. A little bit of cheating never hurt anybody. Um, but yeah, I really love. I do love all of these callbacks because they're callbacks that, for the most part, serve a purpose. Some of them less so. Like, I mean, calling her Sam Carpenter, and then if you take away the, obviously it was for John Carpenter, but then if you take away the Carpenter, give her father's name, Sam Loomis, of course,
Yeah.
Samuel Loomis in Halloween, Sam Loomis in Psycho. Doesn't really serve a purpose there, but it's cute, and it's one of those things you have to think about for half a second. But most of what they bring up is either used to kind of explain the concept to the viewer by using like Halloween remake, and name dropping Jamie Lee Curtis, or the Babadook or whatever, or it's taking these callbacks to the other films in the franchise and building on them and using them to create commentary for this film. Like, it's very, very smart. It's a very, like, I didn't realize it the first time, but it's a very tight script
Yeah.
that does everything it has to do and really nothing else. Like, it has an objective, it knows what it wants to do, and it gets there, and minus a few of those little cheats, does so in a very clean manner. With the only problem, of course, again, being that it's a bit of a heady concept compared to, say, Scream 1 or Scream 2.
Yeah. And again, I feel like you said it perfectly. This really wasn't a series that was meant to have this kind of longevity. I think they even sort of like lampshade that in the movie, actually, where they're like, yeah, it's like when you have a movie that has so many sequels that doesn't need to have that many sequels or any like many movies in the franchise. And I was like, oh, I see what you're doing there. I mean, I like this little sort of like very much making fun of itself. Although like Scream 8 or no, I'm sorry, Stab 8 with the flamethrowers, I kind of love that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind. And I also love that they I didn't actually watch this trailer, but I saw the coverage of it because worked for Screen Rant. But the fact that they use the metallic Ghostface in the trailer and the promotional materials, and then it's just on a laptop for a trailer for like 2 seconds, is quality shit.
Yeah.
That's quality right there. I love, and like I didn't notice this until I was trying to find that stuff about the Richie and Amber kills, and I saw that Jenna Ortega, who steals the show by the way, uh, barely featured at all in the advertising. I don't even think she's on the poster, if I'm not mistaken. And she's, I think, in like one shot in the trailer. So very, very smart shit there, movie. Very smart shit. And I'm very excited for Scream 6. I don't know what they're gonna do. I hope that they go bonkers. I hope that they like I appreciate this movie a lot, obviously. And I like what it was trying to do and say. I would like to see them find a way to evolve the franchise to some degree because, you know, I like this is the one franchise where I'm like, yeah, give me that meta all over my face. Yeah, meta. Oh yeah, meta all over me. There's only at some point you're gonna fuck up.
Yeah.
We haven't had a really bad Scream yet, but I mean that's subjective, but like it could happen if they really don't have just two killers. Like there was the idea in Scream 2, I believe, where they were going to have potentially, I think it was Scream 2, where they might have like they were going to have like a bunch of killers. And it was
I
going to
think
turn out
that
there was like,
I think that was 3. I think that was
was it three?
Kevin Williamson's original.
Oh yeah, you're right,
Uh,
because it was almost
yeah.
like a cult type thing. So like recycling that kind of idea would be interesting. Ideally, whatever they do is an idea that I can't come up with on the spot, and like in theaters, I'm just like, um, I one not again not negative, but thing about this movie is in theaters, I believe I had both killers figured out before. I know I figured out Amber, and then there was some point. Oh, you know what? No, I figured out Richie early on because of the arm cut moment in the hospital.
Uh,
Um, that was a giveaway, and I think it was just because I had just watched all the movies. But it struck me as very like, well, yeah, they've given him all these outs. He's got to be the killer. There's no way he has to be a killer. And they kind of, they try to play with it a bit. There's that point where they try to push Tara as a potential, uh, which I never took as a possibility just because, she's in the hospital with real injuries and
yeah.
like there's no way to really fake that because you have hospital staff and like people that didn't think to her like she can't do it. um I guess they could have done something where like she's the mastermind behind it and she's like making calls from her bed, but even that's really fucking stupid. So like they do try to push that with the inhaler and them having to go back and all that junk. The Stu's house reveal is great. That's a solid one. I don't going back a bit to you loving Gail and Sydney's relationship. My one like the only thing that kind of took me out of the movie again and again, I hate to say it, was Sydney and Gail.
Uh,
Loved Dewey. I thought Dewey was great. I thought Dewey fit in perfectly. Sydney and Gail, they come off to me too much as, hey guys, it's the original cast.
yeah. I can
Um,
see that.
and like
Yeah.
I like Nev Campbell a lot. Courtney Cox is fine. Uh, and I love those characters, but I don't feel like it really does much to like further their characters after Scream 4. Like I mean, it gives us insight into where they've been. Like I like that Sydney got together with Mark and she has I guess 2 daughters, I assume. Uh Gail kind of just did her Gail thing, which is fine, but like I don't know. every scene with them is seemingly just a, hey, doing this again, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you doing it again.
Like for a minute there, it's like I wanted one of them to say, "I'm getting too old for this shit."
It took me out because I was really invested with these characters. Like, as Melissa Barrera, not amazing as Sam. She's fine. As a protagonist, she's fine. But she's surrounded by all these characters who are actually really interesting. I mean, Jack Quaid is naturally super charismatic and fun to watch. I like his kind of dorky millennial thing that he's got going on. And you've got the David Arquette element, rad. Love Mikey Madison, as I mentioned. Love Jen Ortega. Dylan Minnette as Wes. Probably the saddest kill in the film, which was wild. Like, Dewey's really sad, but there's something about Wes dying that was like weirdly tragic, and I'm not entirely sure what it was. Maybe it's because we got so much of him and his mom and like their lovely relationship, and of course his mom dies right before him, and so it adds an extra level of tragedy to it. But and it could just be that Dylan Minnette's really, likable. He seemed like one of the smarter characters, knew what he was doing. He had, all of his shit to help defend himself, but of course you can't, you let your guard down in your own home. Bada bing, bada boom, stab to the neck. Also, it was a very vicious kill. It was a very hard to watch kill. That works even better on the small screen actually, because the CGI isn't as evident. And it really it's a fucked up kill.
Yeah.
And actually, now I'm thinking about it, someone will probably mention this in the comments, but that is the one thing that suggests it's Richie doing the kill. Is it's not like a manic, because again, Amber has like this whole taking me taking a dick, whereas Richie appears to be more of like for the throat. So there is potential there, but of course you also have the issue of, well, Amber's obviously going to have to try with all of her strength to get to his throat because she's small. So I don't know. That's a circle you keep going around and around, I guess, forever, because there's no way to really nail down who did what. But anyway, point being, Mindy and Chad, fantastic. So glad they survived. Wasn't big on Mindy's on the callback with Stab One, where she's on the couch. That was one of the few times, speaking of things that took me out of the movie, it kind of drove me nuts that she's like the big horror nerd who knows all these movies front to back and knows the genre. But then she's watching Stab One, a movie she's definitely seen multiple times. I don't care how fucking high she is. I don't care how full of anything she is. There's no way that she's going to be talking at the TV like that.
Yeah.
And, doing that whole, no, turn around, man. Come on. That took me out a bit, because I just couldn't see someone with her sort of film pedigree doing that. So that was, again, though, small potato. These are all tiny criticisms. Similar, another tiny criticism, and this happens in movies all the time. Where the hospital cameras at, guys? Drives me crazy. The attack, I actually thought that the attack by Ghostface in the hospital, when I was watching in theaters, I thought that it was all in Sam's head, and that maybe that was going to be part of the big reveal, which I actually might explain why I wasn't as impressed with the reveal as I was the second time, because I had built up a bit of is this a psychological thing that they're doing to keep with the whole elevated horror angle, and there's not actually a ghost face attacking her. And then at some point, probably around the Richie arm stabby stab bit, I was like, wait a second, no, fuck, this is just normal killers. But things like all the problems with the movie are minuscule, which is great. It makes me happy. I like when you don't have Scream 3 level problems with your script.
Yeah. Certainly this is compared to like 3 where it was good. Like 3, I kind of feel like is a Scooby-Doo episode essentially,
Yeah.
like Scream, Scooby-Doo, but like I will say that I do appreciate the fact that it didn't feel like they picked the killers out of a hat, like at random, like which is kind of what Scream 3 feels like, because it kind of was sort of like a last minute like here's the killer now. Yeah, I mean everything is well thought out, well planned. My hope is that they've already kind of have an idea of what this self-contained trilogy is going to be, and we get a nice kind of arc with some of these characters. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see like two sisters like really being developed, because they were again one of the most interesting parts of the movie. And I'm gonna say it, I think Stu should come back. um like just bring him back. Like I know that Wes Craven originally wanted Stu to have survived, and it's like what we were saying about like the whole like cult of Ghostface that was going to be like Williamson's original thing for part 3, which got scrapped because the studio kind of panicked after Columbine. um but yeah, it's I don't know. I think that would be a cool place to take it though. The series where I'm gonna say like leave Sydney and Gail alone, like just end their chapter like that. I like that for them. They've developed as probably as far as I think that the series should develop them. Like Gail went from being like a complete fame hungry narcissist to wanting to celebrate her late ex-husband and actually do some really meaningful journalism. Sydney goes from you know, would-be victim, final girl to mother, and still survivor. So just leave them out of it. Bring Stu back. Maybe introduce some new characters that could be like fan favorites, and of course bring back the characters like Mindy that we really liked. Was it like Kirby that they
Yeah,
hinted at that she's,
they in
yeah,
the little video next to Dead Meats thing, yeah, Kirby
yeah.
is still alive, which is
um
rad. I think I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure they already announced that Nev and Courtney Cox would be returning for
hmm,
6.
okay.
If that's the case, I agree. I would like if they were just retired at this point.
Yeah.
One thing I'm not sure how I feel about Stu returning, just because I don't know. Did they? Well, actually, how does he just bleed out in the first film?
Well, okay, so he is stabbed by Billy, which presumably it could survive from, and then he gets a TV pushed on his head.
Right, right. The TV, right about
um
the TV.
but again, he even like the actor, why am I blanking on his name?
Oh,
Matthew Lillard,
yeah,
even
Shaggy.
yeah, speaking of Scooby-Doo, right?
I actually, you know what? I will, as much as I'm not big on the idea of Stu coming back. It almost would be worth it just to call out how fucking stupid the idea of killing someone with a TV set is.
Yeah.
Because it's all based on like him getting electrocuted, basically, which would not happen. That would be kind of a cutesy way of doing it. I
Yeah.
would almost like, one thing I was thinking, I thought about this while I was watching it last night. I would love for them to like wrap up who the killer is early and then reveal that there's someone else, and like that it's like happening at the same time. Because one thing that has not driven me nuts, but I always think about with these movies is how the fuck are these nobodies like just fucking acing being killers? Like every one of it's, they're always so fucking good at it. They're always in the right place, the right time. What if like, like you could, instead of having Nev Campbell and Courtney Cox come back for a full film, you could do an extended opening sequence where you push the idea that they are the ones in danger, almost like Cotton in 3, and then they just fucking take care of it, and you just say straight up like their story's over, and then the rest of the movie can be a byproduct of them taking care of who the killer. And you could like, like give it like 15 minutes maybe of an opening, like a nice extended opening, which actually 15 minutes almost feels like the actual length of some of these openings. And you do a little setup. You take a few little creative cheats here and there, and you end it with, oh yeah, you thought you were smart? No, I'm Sidney Prescott. Fuck you. I got some daughters to take care of, bitch. Bang, bang. And then, from there, you continue with Sam and Tara and Mindy and Chad, and you just fucking ignore the old guard. Just let it be its own thing. Because in my mind, the worst thing about this franchise going forward would be again and again keeping the old guard. Like that's after a while, that's gonna be a huge handicap. You cut that off, you're fine. Especially with Jen Ortega, fucking so good, And Melissa Barrera, I saw her in The Heights. She's a very good actress. It's just this movie, she's fine. Again, she's not bad. She's fine. Plenty of room to get better though. I think that now that she doesn't have to deal with the central conflict of being Billy Loomis's daughter, the fact that she's accepted that, it gives her leeway to have a little bit more fun in the role. And of course, so you put them together, give them a new group of fun friends, bring back Mindy and Chad. One of them probably not going to survive, but that's okay. And just have a fucking ball with it. And maybe there's some commentary to be had there. I'm not sure what is left to really comment on. Like we've really we've gotten through all of it. Like I don't know what the fuck else you're supposed to do. But just give us a good killer and play with the formula. I think that's the big thing, is keep playing with the formula. Don't just try to go back and rejigger the old stuff. Create new, and maybe make it the first one in the franchise that doesn't rely on formula or rely on meta. Like it's still like maybe it's the only meta is the fact that it's another sequel, and it's maybe it's more personal this time. I don't know. Like it's so hard to come up with something for the killers to be doing, because we've tackled toxic fandom, we've tackled reboots, we've tackled social media before social media was even that big. We've tackled just the sequel thing. The family thing has been done twice now, or 3 times now. A bunch of times. It's always about family.
That's a great point. It will be a challenge to kind of, because as you say, each movie kind of had its own sort of the first sequel was dealing with sequels, and then trilogy, like the last in the trilogy, and then reboot and then requels. So it would be interesting to see like what they do. Because they don't necessarily, as you say, have to hang their hat on something like that. It's just, I think, they've always had something to kind of use it as the blueprint, as a jumping off point, to talk about something like a reboot or a sequel or a requel. I'm embarrassed to also confess I've never heard of the term requel until now. Like I know exactly what they were talking about, but I've never heard it like put in that like sort of term.
It's kind of a bullshit term. I don't know. I've never heard anyone use that in real life.
Okay. All right.
Like I'm sure that people have said it. I think it's really just an offshoot of elevated horror and just a way of describing things like Halloween 2018. But it's also commenting on something so new and fairly unproven that it's kind of hard to really tackle it. They do a great job. What did you watch the Scream TV series?
I watched the first season. I didn't see. There was only like 2 seasons, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
Well, I didn't watch it. Did that have a lot of meta commentary to it?
a little. Yeah, it did. The I know the first season kind of leaned in on that, but then it was also kind of its own thing, which was cool. It's been a while also. The one thing I will say that I kind of like annoyed me a little bit was so I can't think of his name. The actor is Kyle Gallner, and he's a fantastic actor. Um,
Oh, Vince, the douchebag.
yes. So they kind of set him up as like, okay, it's an obvious red herring, which I get. I've seen a billion slashers that have that character that is so overtly skeezy that he's definitely not the killer. Um, but they almost kind of set up that he's somehow like connected to somebody from Woodsboro, or like they even at one point say like, well, why was that random guy killed? And Dewey's like, well, that's for you to find out, and we don't get any kind of resolution to that. I mean, it's not a huge thing. It's just I really like that actor. He's a really cool guy. I know my friend just directed him in a movie, and I got to interview him, and he's really awesome. And I was like, man, it's kind of like a bummer that he got such a tiny role and didn't really it didn't really like fit in with, I guess, what like the plot was going for. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that might have just been them commenting on the idea of the red herring, maybe. I took it as Amber just got pissed off and decided that he needed to go.
yeah.
Um, but of course, it does lead to some questions of like, when the fuck did she do that? Because she's like, okay, later, guys, I'm just gonna be over here with this duffel bag of stuff that I brought with me. Y'all go on. I'll catch up.
Yeah.
Um, but
Um,
and I
yeah.
mean, and it's a great death. It's a really solid moment.
Oh
But
yeah, like with the Nick Cave song, the
yeah,
like the
you got
unofficial kind of.
you got the Nick Cave song coming back. And you've got that like the quick stab to the neck, which suggests it could be Richie. So there is also that.
Yeah.
Um, but that quick stab to the neck is just so good. It's such a strong death scene. And fairly, it's not even like really gory or anything. It's just very well done. Actually, that's another thing about this movie that I fucking love. That I always notice this more when I'm stoned, because I really get into these little details. Um, it's so like perfectly shot and edited and planned out that I was just like kind of like, especially like Wes and Judy. That whole sequence is an all-timer for the franchise. That is
Yeah.
such a fucking perfect sequence. Like, it's very tense. It's kind of scary. Uh, the whole bit with Wes in the kitchen and the potential jump scares being
Yeah.
nothing is
Uh,
phenomenal, because it does that thing where it's like the initial joke, okay, I get it. Then the joke becomes, it's like it goes a little too long, and then but it comes right back around. I love that kind of shit. And same for like the hospital sequence, very well done. The moment where Dewey is going back to do the headshot, even though you know what's going to happen, you know that as soon as the elevator closes and he says it does to me, you're like, oh well, Dewey's fucking dead.
yeah.
But it's so good. I do almost wish that that's where they had like it's a great sequence. You have the music kind of building up. You have him putting the bullets in the gun. You get like a shot from behind some windows, dollying with him as he's walking toward, and it's a little slow. Uh, like, it's this really well done moment, and then it's diffused by the cell phone ringing, and then that stab. Like, it's so perfectly put together. I almost wish, and this kind of relays into how I kind of want to see the sequel go. I almost wish he actually had headshotted the killer, and we found out who one of the killers were, whatever. Um, like at the halfway point, um, and then played with that as an idea. But of course, that does kind of fuck up the intentions of the movie, so it doesn't. You'd have to rewrite the entire film. Um, but that aside, all of these sequences, like the final, like the moment where you realize that it's Stu Macher's house,
Yeah.
just so fucking, because it's so smart. All the shots of every, like, first it's, you know, it's dark and there's a shitload of people in the house. I don't think we ever saw Stu's house super dark, so we, you know, we don't have a reference point for that. And then, like, when you first show the house, you're following, like, I think like some guy like carrying beers or something inside, and it's like a medium shot from behind, and all you really get is like the front door and like a little bit of the siding. You barely get a look at the house itself. But because of the way it's shot, you feel like, you know, yeah, it's another house. Who fucking cares? And you know, the one or almost kill outside with Chad is, I think, in the, I guess in like the backyard, like the side or something. Um, and you're a little confused as to your geography, and it's a part of the house you've never seen before, so you're allowed a few wide shots, but all the other shots, they stay like close and medium. You don't get a lot of wides unless there's like a lot of people to obscure everything. And then you get the call from Sydney, it's Stu Macher's house, and then it fucking widens out and you get that, you just pan across like, oh fuck, this is the shot I remember from the first movie. And then it like does that quintessentially Scream thing where it starts at a bit of a Dutch angle and dollies out, and you're just out of the house all of a sudden, and fuck, it's the house. So good. Oh my
Yeah,
god,
that's a
like,
nice moment. I kind of only wish that they wouldn't have spoiled that they were bringing Stu's house back. I know that that was kind of like the photos of them on set was not even leaked. I think feel like they just sort of like put that out there for fans when they
oh, I didn't
were.
see that, so that's I'm glad I
Oh well,
didn't.
then
Yeah,
you're
I kind of avoided, sometimes I'll just almost arbitrarily avoid promo
yeah.
materials for a movie, and this actually worked out because, of course, with Screen Rant we don't cover horror movies, so I was actually kind of busy the entire promotional campaign for this movie focusing on like Marvel movies and shit,
Yeah.
and so I really wasn't paying too much attention to Scream, and I saw the trailer in theaters, and that was it, I believe. I was just seeing it, or not even, I guess I thought I saw it in theaters, but I don't know. Either which way, I saw the theatrical trailers. That was it. Um, so I lucked out in that regard because I didn't know Stu's house uh, was in it. So that was a pretty welcome
Oh
surprise.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
yeah, that I was gonna say, you're definitely lucky because I knew again that his house was gonna be featured, so I assumed that the main sort of party was at his house. So
right.
when they did that reveal, it was really cool still, but it wasn't like I didn't have that like oh shit moment that you
Okay.
probably had.
Well, from a filmmaking standpoint, guys, if you want to do fan service, I'll tell you do fan service. It's
Yeah.
good shit. It's quality shit.
Yeah,
Oh,
and that's a great point because I feel like they did walk this really fine line of like doing their own thing but also doing some fan service. But you know, also like staying true to what they want to do, but then also like walk that line of what like Wes created. And I feel like they didn't. It wasn't like a tug of war of like those two dichotomies. Like it sort of was a perfect sort of intersection of both of those things, like paying tribute to this awesome franchise that Wes created and spearheaded, but then also like, you know, this isn't Wes's movie, this is somebody else's, but you know, yeah, it kind of felt like that connected really well. And it will be really interesting to see with like two more films, like how they can really make it their own kind of trilogy outside of, you know, Wes's films. That's kind of why I wish like I liked. I guess it's not Deputy Hicks; it was Sergeant Hicks now. But I
Sheriff
really
Hicks.
okay, yeah. But I really liked her character. I kind of wish that they would have like kept somebody from like four like
I mean,
to
we are going to get somebody from 4, probably. Like, I don't know what Hayden, like what her deal is right now, but I mean, they did tease that Kirby's alive.
yeah, I would really like to see Kirby back, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be so interesting to see, like I said, what, maybe this film won't, I don't know. I'm kind of curious. It would be interesting to find some interviews with the directors and to see like how like like if it was like a lot of pressure, this being like a taking the mantle from Wes, and like kind of like honoring that but making it their own. Like if they felt like that was kind of hard, or they just sort of like, I mean, whatever, however they did it, they did it fucking great. Like I think that they perfectly made it their film, but then also like honored what came before it. And again, that's kind of why I'm like, I love the legacy characters, but it's like you said, that's really going to hurt in the long run. Like it's just going to be like, just you know, develop this new cast. Like let us get to know them more. Like Sam can be our new Sydney. Um, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's like don't get me wrong. Like I love when I see like Nev Campbell back. Like it's funny when they talked about like how this movie like was a lot of horror fans like entry into the genre, and like how it kind of like sparked our love of horror movies and stuff. And like I was kind of thinking about like my own sort of journey with that. Like it's funny because around the same time Scream came out was like when I was like just starting to watch like Halloween and Friday the 13th and those kind of films. So I was like barely even a teenager when the original Scream came out. So like I wasn't completely new to the genre, but like it definitely like really fueled my love for the genre. Um like I don't know like how that was for you as far as like where you
Did I
were.
did I not tell you the fucked up point in my life where when I first saw Scream?
Um I think you did, but I was gonna say if you want to like reshare with
So I don't know exactly how old I was, but I have like there was a point where I lived in Florida and a point where I moved to South Carolina. So I have that kind of as my range. So I was under the age or right at 8 years old when I saw Scream. I don't think I probably didn't watch all of it. I probably only watched a part of it, but I might have watched all of that. I honestly don't know. Because I did definitely watch it a bunch when I was, still in that like preteen area. But I was at a friend's house when I was living in Florida, so I was 8 or less, and I guess his mom had it on or something, and she was just like super free spirited because Florida, because that shit lodged in my brain forever. Um, so it was a very formative film for me. Uh, I I don't really um I don't I'm not very susceptible to fan focused shit. I'm not really an Easter egg guy, which is again ironic considering my job. But like I don't like fan service very much. Which I think is why like please get as much as I love them, get Nev and Courtney the fuck out of these movies.
yeah.
Please. Um I'm fine with characters coming back. And again, this movie does fan service so well that for the most part I was in it hook, line, and sinker. But there is a certain level of fan service that just does not work for me. And I think they were awfully close to the line and often did take me out.
Hmm.
But yeah, I huge franchise for me growing up, certainly. And definitely, I mean, I can safely say that I am a big fan of this franchise, and it is very deep in my DNA, and I fucking really enjoyed this film to the point where I gave it a 3.5 on Letterboxd. I almost, not that Letterboxd ratings really mean anything, but I'm edging towards a 4 now. I might need to rewatch it and decide, because like as we talk about it, like I'm liking it more and more, because it really does just like nail so much. And like I'm thinking about all the different sequences scattered throughout, and while there are problems, like thinking off the top of my head, like I also really didn't care for the the hell yeah girl moment where she says, "Don't fuck with the daughter of a serial killer."
Yeah.
It's a very tough line to get right because it's so many words. It's not really a quick witticism type moment.
Like fuck your
And
lucky charms.
like I don't know anyone who could just like nail that line. So nothing against her as an actress, but like it's real clunky. But it's followed directly by her shoving a fucking knife in his mouth. So like like even then they fucking save it just by kind of, you know, immediately giving us that sweet sugar. And it really just helps the medicine go down, you know. So like even when I come up with like every time I come up with a problem in my head, it's immediately like, but then we got this and it's
Yeah.
fine. Like they kind of, it almost feels like when working out the screenplay, they were like, this won't work for everybody, but that's okay because we're gonna add a little something afterward just to reel in all the haters in that moment. Of course, that, you know, and I know it doesn't work for everybody. I've seen plenty of reviews of people saying that this is like a raging piece of shit. They're probably just being a little picky, in my opinion. But I mean, I just love that we got a good horror movie. I'm always
Yeah.
worried about that. Oh man, my
Um,
dog just farted something fierce. Oh, Jesus. Good Lord.
um, yeah. So on that note, I feel like, you know, we've really covered a lot of um, why this movie's kind of really awesome, and I'm glad that I finally got to see it. And now I just watched this again this morning, and I feel like I could watch it again. So yeah, you know, is there anything else, kind of final thoughts, or I feel like we probably
Nothing that, I mean, I could go further on a few points, but I think that like all the points have been covered. Like it's just a fucking good movie. Like I think if I'm looking at it as objectively as I possibly can, you know, it is a slasher movie with really likable characters. Um, it has a strong enough twist. The kills are sufficiently violent. They're not as violent as you would expect from like a Halloween, but then Scream has never been that kind of violent. So I'm fine with it. And even then, I think most of the kills are super rad. Dewey's death is fucking cray cray. Wes's death
yeah.
is aggressively gory for this franchise. Like really strong stuff. It's very funny, and as a slasher movie, it just fucking works. Like even if you take away all of the social commentary, it's got a good mystery, good kills, good characters. That's what you need in a slasher movie. So rad stuff. Can't wait for the sequel.
Yeah. Yeah, great. I mean, I would definitely echo like all of that. I would say, yeah, it's very smart. It's very well thought out. The characters, you know, some of them are a little underdeveloped, but I feel like for the most part, they are really fleshed out in really interesting ways. And I'm very excited to kind of see how they, again, do two more films to really kind of like nurture some of these newer characters. And you know, one thing I will kind of mention is I kind of love all the like psycho references because you know, like
The
um
shower. Yeah.
and yeah, and there's like a psycho poster and all that kind of stuff. And there's always this like weird kind of circular thing with Halloween, Scream, and Psycho, um, which is a whole probably entirely a video, different video, all by itself. But it's just little touches like that though that I really appreciate. Like I think this wasn't something slapped together. This was something that was really well thought out and executed really well. So yeah. So wrapping up, I know we talked about your Indiegogo campaign, and I will definitely, you have a YouTube channel that I will also link in the description. If is there anything else you are currently working on or anything you want to promote?
Well, I'm working on a Blu-ray for my second movie, The Head. I can't really give details on that, but we're working on some stuff. We had a few setbacks. One of them was me fucking up really bad, which I will talk about at some point, I'm sure. Um, but that's gonna be pretty sick. And we're gonna. I think this is the first. I don't know that anyone else has ever done a 4K scan of a VHS, but for a Blu-ray release. But that's what we're doing. So that's the big hang up right now. Um, but that's really all I'm doing. It's just that and my YouTube channel and Deathface, um, which Deathface is taking up a lot of my time and energy. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I think I got enough going on. But check out my YouTube channel. I talk about
Yeah,
porn.
it is
Sometimes.
awesome. You just did a review on The Farmer, which I've been really curious to check out. I haven't watched that video only because I want to check that movie out first.
I will say I do. I believe I do say when I'm going into Yeah,
Okay.
I do a non-spoiler bit, and then at some point I say, "Hey, spoilers, kids." Not that exact accent, and then I go into the spoilers. So if you just want a general idea, although I'll even tell you right now, it's worth it. You know, it's fine. It's a good movie. Not
Yeah,
great. Has some
I,
serious issues that I go into, but
I like that you described it as like a sort of lower tier Rolling Thunder. So I know
it is
exactly kind of what
definitely
I'm
that.
getting into.
I did fuck up one thing. Uh, I didn't even consider, and it might make it more worthwhile for you even. I totally forgot that there was this thing in the 70s where we were, as a people, obsessed with World War II and like the 40s. Because you had like Happy Days and stuff, at the time. Which I guess was the 50s. Either which way, you know, nostalgia for the past.
Yeah.
And I was a little befuddled because the movie is a World War II set or era film. Um, and I was like, why isn't it a Vietnam story? And someone pointed out in the comments, oh, because that was a thing that was going on in the 70s. There was a ton of nostalgia for like the 40s and 50s in the 70s, which makes so much sense because, of course, we have nostalgia for the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Um, fucking moron. I'm a
It's kind of
fucking
like
idiot.
that 20 or 30-year cycle of
Yeah.
nostalgia, which is always pretty interesting. But yeah, but I know I've checked out your other videos and they're really awesome. I'm a proud subscriber, so I feel like y'all should be too. And give this man some money, make it rain on him.
I could use about 10,000 more dollars. So yeah, bring
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I have maybe some wealthy people watching, probably not.
all you fucking dentists out there with your fucking weird ass horror movie love. You need to take some of that fucking mola money and you need to put it in this boy's piggy bank. I don't have any more dental things, so I just want piggy bank. But
Yeah, but bottom line is donate, help indie films out. Like, even if you can't necessarily like give him money, share it around, spread the love. I know that even just if you can't donate, which I mean honestly, like the lowest tier is like a buck, right?
I think it's $10, but
Well, yeah, $10. I mean, shit, you some people spend that on a coffee.
yeah,
So help somebody
some people.
nice. But yeah, like just do it. Like I said, I will link all that great stuff in the description. And I also wanted to mention that we are doing a horror movie giveaway. If you right?
Oh,
Amazing stuff. We are going to give away a official Return of the Living Geeks t-shirt and a mystery horror movie. So to enter, all you need to do is comment your favorite scary movie, and then you will be eligible to win that. So you don't want to miss out. I mean, who doesn't
what's your
love like?
favorite scary movie?
There you go. um, Yeah, awesome. So thank you so much. It's been amazing talking as always. It's always a lot of fun. I'm glad we kind of got to do a sequel of our Scream chat. And see what I did there?
I see. You fucking fuck you.
Yeah, it's like I was like, not the most clever thing, but whatever. So yeah, I guess we will have to talk again soon. So I'm gonna do the obligatory. If you like this video, give it a like, share, again, comment, all that good stuff. And thanks for hanging out with us.